598 with a speech titled The Talk.
When I was about 6 years old, I found out that my parents were pro wrestlers. That's right. I used to hear them practicing all the time. And the first time I saw them, they hastily explained that wrestling was a great cardio workout, and they were just getting warmed up. As a naive child, I accepted their explanation and moved on. But as I grew up, I began to question their statements. I don't know if it's the fact that I had never seen them on WWE, or that they never addressed why they were naked. But last week, I finally figured it out. Now, brace yourself, because this might be a little uncomfortable. They were having sex. But now I ask myself, why didn't they just tell me? Sex is a completely natural and normal part of life, but my parents aren't the only ones who avoid talking about it. Even in the 21st century, sex is considered taboo. But this belief is damaging our society. In August of 2021, Illinois began the process of requiring culturally competent and age-appropriate sex education for all K-12 students. But this progress was met with resistance, some claiming that the change was taking it too far and that the new curriculum was a form of sexual grooming. Similarly, in March of 2022, Florida passed a bill commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay Bill, which prohibits the discussion of gender identity and sexuality in the classroom. Governor DeSantis described this bill as anti-grooming and claimed that those against it were probably child predators. These conflicting examples make it clear that even though we have made progress in some areas, we need to evolve our cultural mindset as a whole. So today, even though it might be a little uncomfortable, we are going to be discussing why we should stop treating sex as vulgar and taboo and start talking about it openly. First, we will define our taboo and identify the causes behind it. Then we'll evaluate the life-altering impacts of this belief. And finally, we'll take a look at solutions to help dismantle the taboo associated with sex. As defined by the Cambridge Dictionary, a taboo is a subject, word, or action that is avoided for social reasons. Now, the taboo when it comes to sex is a little bit different. People don't avoid having sex, and I mean, we're all evidence of that. But rather, people avoid talking about sex. The taboo surrounding sex stems from one of the oldest influences of all time, religion. According to University of Texas professor Mark Rignerus and his book titled Forbidden Fruit, religion is one of the primary socialization agents in children and adolescents. In the US, the predominant religion is Christianity, and certain sects consider the following to be a sin: masturbation, sex before marriage, sex without the intention of procreation, and oral sex. And it's not just Christianity. Many different religions prohibit or advise against sex in some way, shape, or form. But you don't even have to be religious to feel those impacts. Religion can be a big part of cultural identity, influencing how people dress, what they eat, and how they behave, without ever stepping foot into a church. Religion has even influenced something as commonplace as how we conceptualize time. According to LiveScience.com, in the year 525, a monk commonly referred to as Dennis the Small estimated Jesus had been born 525 years prior. This counting system, known as AD, an acronym which translates from Latin to mean in the year of our Lord, has been used ever since, marking 2022 as 2022 years since Jesus was born. This is just one of the many examples of how Christianity is baked into our civilization. It's literally unavoidable. In addition, there are anthropological explanations for the taboo surrounding sex. Cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker suggests early humans viewed sex as an animalistic behavior, and in turn, a lowly act. In this view, we like to consider ourselves to be higher order beings, so we try to distance ourselves from what we perceive as a primitive and mindless act. From the manger to the animals in it, these influences make us feel like sex is bad, or at the very least, shameful. So much so that a 2014 Family Circle magazine survey found 50% of American teens were uncomfortable talking about sex with their parents or authority figures. And this has some very unsexy consequences. Now that we understand why we feel ashamed about sex, let's talk about the effects this has on our lives. The Guttmacher Institute, an organization dedicated to advancing sexual wellness, found that as of October 1st of 2021, only 30 states required sexual education. And yes, it's the cool states. But wait for it. Of those 30, only 18 required it to be medically accurate. Now, we would never allow for a teacher to continue an education if they were teaching that 2 + 2 is 5, or that Queen Victoria was Abraham Lincoln's sneaky link. But because of our discomfort when it comes to sex, we don't advocate for its education in the same way. In fact, some states and schools advocate for abstinence only, rather than educating students on safe sex practices. According to the National Institute of Health, the states with laws that require abstinence-only education have the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the country, as well as the highest STD rates. But maybe parents are talking about sex with their kids, right? Wrong. According to a 2014 study by Planned Parenthood, only 52% of parents report ever discussing sex with their children. I guess the other 48% went with the stork delivery story. Which, personally, I think getting blown through the air by a giant bird is way weirder than 2 people having a hot tub hookup. In addition, refusing to talk about intercourse can have negative effects on mental well-being. According to a 2019 article from Scientific American, we feel shame when we violate the social norms that we believe in. In other words, kids are brought up to think that sex is wrong, and then feel shame and guilt for doing something that's a completely natural and normal part of life. Furthermore, according to the National Institute of Health, when feelings of guilt arise, the likelihood of future sexual dissatisfaction is greatly increased. A 2010 study from the Journal of Sex Research found 67% of women have faked an orgasm. Now, we all know the stereotype of the clueless man unable to pleasure a woman. But in reality, much of this dissatisfaction for women stems from social pressures they experience, which deters them from vocalizing their sexual desires. From higher pregnancy and STD risks to faked orgasms, refusing to talk about intercourse makes sex less safe and less fun. So it's clear we need to dismantle the taboo associated with sex. But the question isn't what we need to do, it's how do we do it? First, parents should start an open dialogue about sex with their kids from a young age. And when doing so, use anatomically correct terms. I far too often hear phrases like ding-a-ling and kitty from full-grown adults. According to Nadine Thornhill, a Toronto-based sex educator, though using anatomical terms may seem daunting, parents should be casual and treat those terms as they would the word arm or ankle. Using anatomical terms empowers children by giving them the language needed to describe their own bodies. Moreover, according to Nora Gelprin, a director of sex education, predators are less likely to select a child who can accurately talk about those body parts. Since this language allows kids to describe any incidents that may occur, it wards off predators and helps to keep children safer. And when discussing the dangers associated with sex with children, focus on reducing risks rather than telling them not to have sex at all. Now, I'm not saying you should directly encourage little Tommy teenager to get between the sheets with Kathy from chemistry class, but rather be accepting enough so they feel like they can reach out for help and resources. Finally, as a nation, we need better sexual education. The Netherlands started mandating yearly sex education for all school-age children back in 2015. And according to the Dutch Review, as of 2019, the Netherlands had reduced their number of teenage pregnancies. And now, they have the lowest rate in the European Union. Additionally, according to a 2022 article from The Atlantic, comprehensive sex education helps kids have healthier relationships of all kinds, improves communication skills, and even boosts media literacy. Despite the claims of Governor DeSantis and others, sex ed isn't grooming, but rather it helps to protect kids from grooming. Now, there's no one way to undo the decades of awkwardness surrounding sex, but there's no better time to do it than right now. That's what she said. So today, we defined our taboo and identified the causes behind it. Then we evaluated the life-altering impacts of this belief. And finally, we took a look at solutions to help dismantle the taboo associated with sex. After I walked in on my parents, I wish they would have just told me what they were doing. That way, I wouldn't have gone around telling all my teachers my parents were professional naked wrestlers. My parents shouldn't have felt as though they had to hide sex from me. Sex is fun, silly, imperfect, and totally normal. And we shouldn't be hiding from sex. We should be celebrating it through education and open dialogue. So talk with your child, your friend, or even your wrestling partner. It doesn't matter who. All that matters is practice makes better. And when it comes to talking about sex, we could all use a little extra practice.